Isn't the human brain a funny thing? One minute, you can remember your best friend's ridiculously complicated Wi-Fi password from 3 years ago. Then the next minute, you're standing in front of the open refrigerator, utterly clueless about what you came in for. Or perhaps you meticulously packed your lunch this morning only to realize at noon that it's still sitting on your kitchen counter. It's a classic human experience, this selective brilliance of our recall. Some facts stick like superglue while others vanish like mist on a sunny morning. It makes you wonder what's really going on up there in that noggin of yours. This whole memory business is like a fascinating, ongoing detective story. Why do some experiences etch themselves into our minds with vivid detail, becoming permanent fixtures in our personal history museum? Think about your first day of school, or that time you laughed so hard, milk came out your nose. Those memories are probably crystal clear, yet the name of that person you just met 5 minutes ago? Poof. Gone. It's like our brains have a very particular, sometimes peculiar filing system. Some files are labeled top secret, keep forever, while others seem to be written in disappearing ink, fading away before we even realize they were there. So let's embark on an adventure together, a journey into the squishy, amazing world of your brain. Your brain's personal filing cabinet. At its core, a memory is basically a piece of information that your brain has decided is important enough to store. Think of your brain as a super sophisticated, incredibly vast computer, but way cooler because it's made of organic stuff and can run on pizza. When you experience something, see a new face, learn a new word, taste a delicious cookie, your brain processes this information. If it deems the info worthy, it saves it, much like you'd save a document on your laptop or a photo on your phone. This saved information, this neural trace of an event or fact, is what we call a memory. It's your personal record of the world. These files in your brain aren't quite like the neat folders you might have on your desktop, though. They're more like intricate tapestries woven from connections between brain cells. Each thread represents a tiny piece of the experience, a sight, a sound, an emotion, a thought. When you recall a memory, your brain reweaves that tapestry, reactivating those specific connections. It's a dynamic process, not just pulling a static file from a dusty shelf. This is why memories can sometimes feel a bit fuzzy or change slightly over time. The reweaving isn't always an exact replica of the original. It's more like an artist repainting a scene from memory, capturing the essence but perhaps altering a few minor details. Now, how does the brain actually do this magical storing and retrieving? It all comes down to tiny little brain cells called neurons. You have billions of them, around 86 billion, give or take a few million. Think of them as the individual messengers or workers in your brain's vast communication network. Each neuron has a body, and then these spidery arms called dendrites that receive signals, and a long tail called an axon that sends signals out. They're constantly chattering with each other, passing information along like a super fast, super complex game of telephone, but thankfully, much more accurate most of the time. The real magic happens at the connections between these neurons. These connections are called synapses. When you learn something new connections form between neurons, or existing connections get stronger. The more you use that neural pathway, the stronger and more efficient it becomes. This process of strengthening connections is called long-term potentiation, or LTP for short. When two neurons fire together frequently, the synapse between them gets beefed up. It's like that hiking trail becoming a paved road, then a highway. This makes it easier for the signal to pass between those neurons the next time. So when you're studying for a test, and you review the material over and over, you're essentially strengthening these synaptic pathways, making it easier to recall that information when you need it. You're literally carving that knowledge into your brain's landscape. Not all memories are created equal, and they don't all go straight into permanent storage. Your brain has a kind of sorting system, starting with something called short-term memory, or working memory. Think of it like a mental notepad or a small conveyor belt in a busy factory. This is where your brain temporarily holds information it's currently using or has just encountered. When someone tells you a phone number and you repeat it to yourself until you can dial it, that's your short-term memory in action. It can only hold a small amount of information, typically around 7 items, plus or minus 2, for a very limited time, usually just a few seconds to a minute. This short-term memory conveyor belt is constantly moving. New packages of information arrive, and if they're not deemed important enough or aren't actively worked on, they quickly fall off the end to make space for new ones. It's a bit like juggling. You can only keep so many balls in the air at once. If you get distracted while trying to remember that phone number, say someone asks you a question, poof! The number might vanish from your mental notepad. This is why cramming for a test at the last minute often doesn't lead to lasting learning. The information might hang out on the short-term conveyor belt long enough for the test, but it rarely makes the leap to more permanent storage. So, How does a piece of information get promoted from this temporary holding bay to the grand library of long-term memory? This process is called memory consolidation. The oops, I forgot. Department Y memories play hide and seek. Forgetting is just as much a part of how memory works as remembering. If we remembered every single trivial detail of our lives, our brains would be impossibly cluttered. Imagine remembering every single car you passed on the way to school today. So forgetting is actually a useful feature, not always a bug. One major reason we forget is simply decay. Those synaptic connections, those well-worn trails, can weaken over time if they're not used. It's like an old hiking path slowly getting overgrown if no one walks on it anymore. The memory trace fades, making it harder to retrieve the information. This is often what happens with facts you learned long ago but haven't revisited. Another culprit in the great brain robbery is interference. Sometimes new information gets in the way of old information, or old information makes it harder to learn new things. Think about getting a new phone number. For a while you might keep accidentally recalling your old number, or if you learn a new language, words from your native tongue might pop up when you're trying to speak it. Memory superpowers. Can we really hack our brains for better recall? The good news is that we're not entirely at the mercy of our sometimes forgetful brains. There are indeed ways to hack our memory, or perhaps more accurately, to work our brain's natural processes to improve how we learn and remember. It's not about installing new software but about using the existing hardware more effectively. One of the most powerful yet often underrated memory enhancers is something we just touched upon: getting enough good quality sleep. Seriously, it's like a super serum for your memory. During deep sleep, your brain replays experiences, strengthens neural connections, and transfers information from the hippocampus to the neocortex for more permanent storage. So, prioritize those zizzies. Another classic technique, and one your teachers have probably been telling you about for years, is repetition and rehearsal. Remember those hiking trails? The more you walk a neural pathway by reviewing information or practicing a skill, the stronger and more durable that memory trace becomes. This doesn't mean mindlessly repeating something over and over again for hours. It's more about actively engaging with the material. Test yourself, try to explain it to someone else, or write it down in your own words. This active recall strengthens the memory far more than passively rereading your notes. Connecting new information to what you already know is another fantastic memory hack. More brain hacks, the power of connection, pictures, and a good story. Let's dive a bit deeper into some specific techniques that leverage these principles, turning you into a memory ninja. One powerful set of tools falls under the umbrella of mnemonics. These are memory aids that help you link new information to something more familiar or easier to recall. You've probably used some already, like Richard of York gave battle in vain for the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Acronyms, acrostics, rhymes, and songs are all types of mnemonics. They work by creating a novel, often catchy association that acts as a retrieval cue for the information you want to remember. It's like giving your brain a secret code. Visualization is another incredibly potent memory enhancer. Our brains are wired to remember images much better than abstract words or numbers. So if you want to remember a shopping list instead of just repeating milk, eggs, bread, try creating a vivid, perhaps even absurd, mental image. Picture a giant carton of milk wearing an egg as a hat, breakdancing on a loaf of bread. The more unusual and engaging the image, the more likely it is to stick in your mind. This technique, sometimes called the method of loci or memory palace when taken to an advanced level, involves associating items with specific locations in a familiar place, like rooms in your house. Your amazing, ever-evolving memory machine. So, there you have it, a whirlwind tour of the fascinating world of human memory. Memory is a complex set of processes involving billions of neurons and synapses. It's like a super advanced computer, but with the charm of occasionally misplacing its own car keys. From neural pathways to short-term recall, your mind is a hive of constant activity. Forgetting is a natural and often helpful part of this system. Our brains filter out the unimportant to make space for new experiences. Stress, lack of sleep, and new information can make memories vanish. Understanding these mechanisms gives us power. It helps us appreciate the delicate dance of remembering and forgetting. We can actively engage with our brains using techniques like sleep, repetition, and visualization. These methods work in harmony with how our brains are designed to learn and remember. By understanding the rules, we can sharpen our recall and keep our memory machines running smoothly.